boss is not your mentor, so never make that mistake. And I've always had a professional mentor.
I feel especially women are not or are shy to say, but it's putting in hard work. It's whatever you do is always trying to step it up a little bit and put in the work even though nobody's watching or clapping. That's definitely, I think, having a track record is the basis for it.
There's no short track to success. That is a marathon. So if you really want to achieve something, then you have to, just get into it and do it, right?
I had my mom who ran the family business as an inspiration that you can do things even in a country that's a bit more conservative. I come from Eastern Europe, and then again being lucky for going to the tech sector at the time that it was still booming.
I think definitely the hard work. It's something that I always like to emphasize. The hard work definitely will actually give you a lot of things.
So again, welcome to this first panel discussion from the Mentoring Club. Topic today is women shaping their careers. I do a little introduction, tell you a bit about the Mentoring Club because it's still very new, and as said, it's the first event like that we host. And then I will do a quick introduction about all the panelists that will talk today, and then I will stay quiet and let the panelists talk. All right, so the Mentoring Club. I think all of you saw this because all of you know is that it started only just about 3 months ago in April when Jess and myself, Jess who's also one of the panelists tonight, got a notification from our company that we actually need to reduce working hours because of the Corona crisis. And we said, hey, let's do something different and offer pro bono mentoring sessions via LinkedIn. And that's what we did. And in less than 10 days, I think 10 to 12 other mentors from our network joined. And in only 3 months up to now, we have almost 100 mentors from around the globe who joined us from more than 30 countries, and we are offering 300 hours of free mentoring every week. So out of this little idea, which started with just the two of us, we started this little movement that make a lot of people happy and probably even more successful in the future. We received 150 feedbacks from happy mentees already, and based on that, we are still growing. So we still get 10 to 20 new mentors every week. We see a lot of feedback coming from people around the globe, questions that were answered, etc. And based on that, we decided to actually not keep it as it is and keep it small, but actually continue even if the crisis is now over or will be over at some point. We will launch a new website soon. We will have way more events like this, hopefully. This is kind of the MVP for that tonight. And we all hope for your support and your feedback about what we could do probably better. All right, so the panelists tonight, we have Kirsten, Jess, Fanny, Monique, and Mirela talking about how they shaped their careers, what they did when they were students, how they started their careers, what they did today, and what they probably would tell themselves when they were younger again, or like today, what they would tell you in order to become successful. Monique originally comes from Australia. She has 16 years of experience in field of communication, worked in Australia, America, and now Germany. She has a master's in communication, and most recently she presented at the Global Communication Summit and is nominated as an International Association of Business Communication board member for the EMEA region. Kirsten is currently focusing on herself and growing and finding a new path after she was SVP of strategy for the Pro7 Group, which is one of the biggest media companies in Germany. But she also worked at leading strategy consultancy and advised manufacturers around the globe on mobility and innovation. It was about BMW, Jaguar, Land Rover, and other companies. She is also an advisor to startups, startup founders, and keynote speaker on the topic that we have today. So how to empower females and make them successful. Jessica, who is my colleague at Omio, where we both work as director of engineering and chief product, and also the founder of this mentoring club. She works at Omio and is responsible for 6 product teams, which all focus on innovating and expanding the platform as it is today. Prior to that, she worked at Scout24, which is the leading real estate marketplace in Germany. And there she overlooked product and marketing for the biggest tribe and was responsible for 70% of the business. Her probably most important topic or domain beside product management is leadership itself, where she developed a strong interest in culture and how to lead in a more humane way. She sees herself as an enabler and supporter for her teams, and also wants to spread these values to the world. Right, so then we have Fanny, originally from Indonesia. She works as a product manager at VMware Pivotal Labs, and there she helps enterprise clients building the product, and she teaches those clients to build the product in an agile and digital world. It's mostly about enterprise products and bring the agile values and agile practices into that world as well. She worked in different companies as a business analyst, as product manager, for example, Unilever, Android, as an Android engineer. She worked at Fraunhofer and other organizations. Besides the raw numbers, she believes that not everyone sees this as a problem, which is challenge in itself. Mirela, who also worked with Jess and myself at Omio for a while. She's also a product manager and has built and scaled numerous customer-centric products and teams. She led product teams at Watchmaster, managed the marketplace there, and built different teams and different products at companies across different different industries. And also she's an organizer of one of the biggest product manager groups that is co-hosting this event as well. All right, so we'll stop this quick intro so that we have more time to actually talk about the topic.
Thank you for doing this, Bastian. Very nice of you. So hopefully you all now have an idea about who we are and who you get to know even better today, hopefully. Before I start with the first topic that we would like to touch with you today, I want to encourage you to write your questions in the chat, where we've also said hello to everyone, which was nice, by the way. Good to see all these different countries and people from everywhere. So please continue to do this, and Bastian will watch closely what everybody is writing, and then whatever or whenever it fits, we'll make sure that we also answer questions. And if in the end we skip the last one that we prepared, that's fine, for as long as we can make sure everything that you want to know is answered within the next 45 minutes, let's say. But to open up and break the ice, I think we've heard lots of interesting facts already. What a tremendous group of women we have here today. And referring to everything we've just heard and all the experience that we all have, all these women here have, we would like to start with a more broader question, which is what we all think are the three, let's say, top three ingredients for where you are today. So what have helped you? What do you think is been the top three things that helped you climb the career ladder to where you are at the moment? Monique, would you like to start?
Sure. So for me, obviously, having a good mentor has been essential. I've always had one or two, sometimes mentors throughout my career. Your boss is not your mentor, so never make that mistake. And I've always had, a professional mentor. I've always sought to be open to opportunities. So when a very strange, random opportunity comes along, I try and say yes if I can and see where that takes me. And thirdly, I think discovering who I am as a leader and what kind of leader I want to be has also been really, really essential. I was that shy girl in the library in primary school, too scared to say boo to a goose. And through the years, I've gradually found my voice and found that kind of empathetic, but also strong leader that I can become.
Nice, thank you so much. Kirsten, would you mind being the next one to share your top three?
Sure, my top three, I think it's even hard to say top three. Definitely, I mean, it's always something I feel, especially women are not or are shy to say, but it's putting in hard work. It's whatever you do is always trying to step it up a little bit and put in the work, even though nobody's watching or clapping. That's definitely, I think, having a track record is the basis for it. And the second thing that comes with it is also just being grateful for the opportunities you're given. Because even though, or whether it is a tough client you're having, or whether it's a boss that you might feel is not supporting you all the way through, it's still something you can learn from the person. And that's probably a third thing. Like, while you put in the work, while you're being grateful, try to learn from every opportunity you have. And I guess that's always gets you to the next level, always stepping up a bit. So definitely counting on these.
Right. Well, that makes perfect sense. And I totally agree. I would say, from my perspective, putting in hard work is always necessary. There's no short track to success. Mm-hmm. That is a marathon. So if you really want to achieve something, then you have to, just get into it and do it, right? Mirella, how about yourself?
Sure. Thought about it for a bit, and I think one of the first components is still luck, because I was born in a country free of war, and my family, my parents as well as my grandparents had a university degree, so for that was very important for them, and invested a lot in tutoring me from math to English to all the stuff that they considered important. And second, I had my mom who ran the family business as an inspiration that you can do things even in a country that's a bit more conservative. I come from Eastern Europe, and then again being lucky for going to the tech sector at the time that it was still booming. Second, I would put to having this ambition and wanting to be good at what I do, and not being afraid to do the work and embrace sucky times, which I've also noticed with my mom running her own business. Like, a lot of things go sideways, and a lot of times employees don't do what you expect, or the clients have their own agenda. And third was taking some calculated risks. So I'm not like this adventurous entrepreneur, Silicon Valley type, but I still did a few things when I feel like the odds or the success chance is better, or the risk is worth taking. And some of this stuff has panned out. So others have not, or I've also missed some opportunities from being too cautious.
Yeah, which is often also how women act, right? They're rather cautious, and when you say calculated risk, right, that's something where we should probably speak about in a bit more detail, not to be too shy to take risks, because that's just part of the game. But before we maybe step into this a bit deeper, I would like to also hear Fanny, if you would also be willing to share your top three.
Yeah, sure. So I kind of like agree for most of the point that you guys already pointed out. I would also consider I learned a lot from my mom. Well, I saw her how actually she built her own company back in Indonesia. And then from her, I learned like one of the things, definitely I want to define what kind of a leader I want to be. So this is kind of the thing that I was looking the past 10 years. So one of the things, definitely the hard work. It's something that I always like to emphasize. The hard work definitely will actually give you a lot of things. The second thing is also empathetic. Sometimes I've seen a lot of leaders that like, oh, they consider because they're already on the top, they couldn't understand what's going on or the problem for other people. So I think this is also something that part of the biggest characteristic I would put in for myself. And the last thing is definitely open for learning. So as a leader, even though you are already on the top, so you have to also iteratively improve yourself. So yeah.
Yeah, no, 100% true. I think on the calculated risk part, I would like to share one thing which I realize very often when I hire people, which is that there's a big difference between men and women when it comes to reading job descriptions and actually deciding on whether or not to apply. And here I would like to encourage, especially the women who listen to us today, job descriptions are always written in a way, how people would dream reality would come true. But there's in 99.9% of cases, no one person that can do all the things that are in the job description. So don't be shy. For me, rule of thumb is if you can match 50%, apply and just see what happens while you are in the interview and get to know the people. And don't read it and then just decide, oh no, I can't do that. That's too high. That's too much. That's too difficult. Try it. You will be surprised by how well you will be able to convince people about your strength and your past experiences.
And
Maybe
if I
to
could,
pile on that, it's I would even stick it even broader, because you feel exactly as you say, it's job description. And even if you like your job, it's about pay raise and promotion. Just give an example from my teams when I had both females and both women and men in my team. And the men usually come at the end of the year asking for a pay raise. And even as a leader, you sometimes ask, so for what? And so it's most of the time they're stating it first, just very broadly and promptly, because if they ask for 10%, maybe they get 5. While on the other hand, most of the time I felt like women are super shy asking for a pay raise. They more feel like, okay, how was it this year? Maybe they ask for the bonus in a little bit different way, but be open, be bold, and have your items ready, what you did throughout the year, and why it makes sense that you get a pay raise or you get the next promotion. But yeah, feel free, and I fully agree with Jessica on that one. Feel free to ask for it, because if you don't ask, it's always be a no.
Yeah.
Yeah, I second that. I think I read a research about like the career progression between women and men, and then also Jack Ma, who is the CEO of Alibaba, mentioned for women most likely we are thinking some kind of like day-to-day kind of job. Like as a woman, I want to be work really good for my work now, today, and then the next day. And then I think for men, they have this kind of like braveness, like, okay, I'm also thinking about my career progression. I want to get promotion by 6 months or one year. And I would also really encourage that we as a woman start doing that too. Because definitely I've seen a lot of women leadership, a progression in this tech world. So yeah, definitely I second what Kirsten said. Yeah.
if I can just take the gender out of it and put it to you, if you step back and you look at the opportunity as a stretch, it is an opportunity for you to take, and just think if you could do all those things in the job description or in the project that is up for offer, then you'd probably be a little bit bored with it as well. So think of it as this what you might perceive as a gap, as the opportunity for you to take that and to personally grow as well as contribute to your company.
Yeah, that's all. Thank you for mentioning this, Monique. And I actually had a second question for you because you said something else which was interesting. You mentioned your boss is not your mentor. Can you elaborate a bit more on why you said this and what you mean with this?
I very early on in my career, I very much looked up at my boss for guidance or my manager for guidance. And while I've always respected my manager, there are things that there's a certain need to manage upwards as an employee. And in order to do that, you can't give them all your secrets. But on the other hand, you need someone to talk with. You need someone who you can admit all your failures with. You need someone who you can celebrate with, you know, when you convinced your boss to do a project that you knew was right, but they didn't necessarily see the opportunity in it straight away. And so I think it's so important to have that division of your manager or your direct leader who you report to, who you need to keep happy, versus your mentor, someone who you can be honest with, completely open with, who you can admit your failures with, who you can learn from. And the relationship becomes also symbiotic, because over time with a lot of my mentors, I've found that they've been able to share with me, because you build that trust, and it transcends the workplace. So you can keep the mentor as you move workplace, and they share with you as well their challenges, and you're able to give some insights as well.
Yeah, well, that's for sure the biggest of all achievements, right? If you have earned all the trust from your mentor, and he or she would also start to share with you, and where it becomes a situation where both parties actually learn something, and not only the mentee or the person that was the mentee in the first place. All right. If nobody has to add anything to this very first question, and I haven't seen any questions coming up in the chat yet, so I'm interested in understanding your career path a bit better. I think reading through all your CVs, that all sounds so straightforward, and I'm very interested in learning if this was all planned this way, or if you actually after school or university did A and now you do B, and that's completely different, or have you all known right from the start what you wanted to do and now you're there? Mirella, maybe you can give it a start. I haven't heard you in a while.
Sure. So for me, it wasn't planned at all. When applying for the university, I can admit that my mom was a guiding force. I was pretty strong in math back then, but I was also interested in life sciences. So I kind of had this, should I do something with economics, or should I go to do medical? And my mom was like, no, these are not transferable if you want to leave the country like your uncle did. And my uncle had left back in the 80s. And moved to Netherlands to work in tech over there. And my mom thought, okay, tech looks like a better area. You can just transfer the knowledge without needing to get relicensed if you move somewhere. And if you're just an accountant, it's boring. You can always learn that. And if you're a doctor, it's a bit too male dominated and hierarchical. And you just, until 40, you need to do 12 or 24-hour shifts for shitty pay with like no end to it. So my mom was very brutal about it. This doesn't look like a good idea. Try tech, at least there maybe you can find something better. My mom also didn't know that we would be like 2% women, I think it was, in my class. And then after graduating, I ended up after a few years at Avira. Was running a small QA automation team. Didn't think about product management. That wasn't so hot, especially since in Eastern Europe you outsource things. So I ended up doing the work when one of the employees, they were calling them business analysts back then, or something like that. He was building the homegrown employee portal. So think of Facebook at work, or this sort of intranet where you see the manager's birthday, you order your lunch and some other stuff depending on region. So that person goes away. I was involved in the launch because we were running the QA part, so I took over, and then was the person collecting feedback and planning the next iterations and balancing between the Romanian office and the German office, which requests they get. And after a while, I said, yeah, I want to do this job. And they said no. So then I went to a company where I could. So that's how I ended up officially in product management. And the official role that I did, my first one as a product, was in AdTech, which like everyone now says, oh, AdTech is awful. But back then it was a great opportunity because I moved in a space where I saw I had interest in.
And when you look back now, I think because your career is especially interesting because now you're a freelance product person versus employed. So what made you change to freelance?
Oh, I think one of them, it would be the Berlin setup, because here it's not very custom to give a lot of equity to employees. So the potential upside is not that big in case things go very well. At the same time, I think I was either lucky or unfortunate to be in some places where the culture was not great. And on that, I want to commend you and Bastian. Like the culture at Omio was one of the best I've had when working on client projects. And also seeing the engineering team be so engaged and all that, that's super hard to do and also measure, because a lot of people think, oh yeah, we'll do a retro and a retro fixes everything. So one was that, like having kind of a bad culture where I felt I wasn't heard or didn't see a path forward. And then second, didn't feel like I have a big upside from the time like investing these 60-70 hours a week, because it was of course like pretty high burn rate company. And at the same time, I have a friend who is managing HR and recruiting and all this at one of the bigger corps, and she was making fun of me, like, you look like a job hopper, you haven't been more than 1 year somewhere. Like in our company, we consider an employee productive only after a year. So I thought, yeah, maybe I should just make this official, since I'm anyway organically not staying in places more than that. So I think my last role before going freelance was almost 2 years. And then it was this blockchain boom. I knew someone who had got funding but didn't have experience running or delivering most of anything. But they had the budget and they needed something to happen. So that's how I went in and helped unofficially, and then later on figured out that, like with the first role, that this is what I'm doing and I should structure and have a way of presenting myself and this type of services.
Thank you, Mirella. Thank you for your deep insights into family structure and how all of your career developed. That was very interesting. Kirsten, I think for you, there's also this very obvious and interesting question that I would like to ask, if I may, because you've switched from mobility to media, and now you quit such a fantastic job. What made you do that, and how does it feel? And what would you be willing to share with us?
Absolutely. Yeah, I guess there are a couple of elements in there. And you asked in the beginning, is the path straightforward? And maybe I start with that one, because it's initially I wanted to stay at the strategy consultancy like everybody does, maybe 2 to 3 years. But that's also like a tip I can give to everybody. It's like when the company grows, grow with it. And for me, it was back then, I started at the interface of media and automotive already back then. We called it connected car. There was nothing like mobility like we have right now. And then it just grew to a very interesting field. So I grew with the topic and I grew with the company, advising more and more clients. And then we even set up a digital practice in our company. So I had the chance to set up the practice in Europe, which I could have not known when I started my job there. So that's definitely something like, while we're always looking to plan our career, it's also go with the opportunities you have along the way. And then that's also what made me switch, because back then ProSiebenSat.1, one of the biggest European media and e-commerce companies, approached me. And I was exactly as you were in terms of like, well, I'm doing automotive. How could that match actually to media? And then I was thinking through it quite a while, because we often think of the functions and the topics we've learned, But if we think of it in a broader way, in a broader sense, in a bigger picture, then it was about, in mobility, I had advised companies that have a core, which means selling cars, and they needed to switch from selling cars to actually attracting young customers, showing them how to use mobility in the city, which is more or less the same for the media companies. They have their old core, TV advertising, and then they needed more and more to switch, having competitors like Netflix. You need to have a new product and a new answer for the younger ones. And that's also when I do career consulting these days. I feel like if you go on a bigger picture, look what you've learned over the years, look what you can actually offer. And that's sometimes even much more than the functions you can actually check mark. And that made me switch to ProSieben.1, and I stayed there for 3 years now. And for me, it was a question of how can I make an even bigger impact? Because I was running the departments for strategy and business development. I had great teams and I really loved it. But at the same time, I felt like if I put the same amount of work I put in here in that job, if I can do something on my own, maybe I can have even a bigger impact. And when I shared that with my parents, you could believe they felt like, no, stay where you are. It's a good job. It's well paid. And probably most of you have heard that in terms of when you think of switching, it's like our parents, they want the best for us. They want safety. They want to ensure we're good and have enough money. But if you feel there's an opportunity you want to go for, I think especially in Germany, there's nothing that can happen to you. You have a great CV, you have some experience, even from a financial background, you cannot even fall, especially in Germany. So it's a question of why not just try it? And that's always been something throughout my career where I feel like even if it feels hard, and I think Monique, you mentioned it earlier, I remember one moment when I was part of the strategy team. So when I joined ProSieben.1, I had some experience, but I was not leading it yet. And then all of a sudden, my boss came up to me and told me that he will leave the company if I want to take it over. And I was totally, like Monique said earlier, I was like, well, I have these 5 elements I can do. All of the others, I definitely can't. But it was sitting there, and Nixon was sitting, the CEO of the company. He was like, well, I could see you in that position. So I answered, having Sheryl Sandberg in my back of my mind. I answered, yes, happy to. But I left the room, got in the car, called my boyfriend, and was heavily crying in terms of like, what did I just do? I would never be able to do that. And yeah, you grow with your opportunities, and you definitely grow with the options you get. And I felt way too young for it, but at the same time, why not give it a try? And I guess that's always something that made me do it.
This is probably also something that when Bastian made the introduction, he said, what would you tell your younger self today? I think this would for sure be one of your top tips, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
This also connects back to what Monique said before, right? It's about not giving all the power to your manager. So if you just give your whole career, your whole life to one person who is not your manager in a year anymore, whatever, right? Then you put yourself on a losing path. Probably if there's an opportunity, like you said, that's good. But saying, hey, I need to wait because this person needs to give me something in order to grow. Yeah. This is definitely not the right choice, right?
Absolutely.
And funny, I think you can also give very good insights into a different angle we haven't touched yet, because you've studied computer science, you were an engineer, and now you moved to product. So how did this feel, and how did you do it?
Yeah, so looking back, my dream was actually to be a computer science professor. So I think it's part of like a rebellious act because I came from a business family. Definitely the parents, I also agree what Kirsten said, like they want to have security and etc., etc. I love math since I was a kid. So that's why I picked computer science. But waiting for master, I thought like, okay, I need to try working in corporate company. So let's try Unilever. So I think at that time, I didn't really think to be a business analyst. It was just like an open job at Unilever, and Unilever is also a big company. So I thought like, oh, I could actually learn from a lot of different people, until finally, okay, no, I don't like working in enterprise company. I want to be a professor. So I need to actually take my master. So I moved to Germany. I study at Aachen, also in computer science. But then during my master thesis, I thought, I don't think that I would like to be in academia. The reason behind it is also because I felt I create my own problem and I'm trying to find my own solution. And at the same time, at that time, I didn't really probably understand if the problem itself is a current problem in the real world. So from there, I also experienced as an engineer. I love to be an engineer. I like Android creating application. So I thought, okay, this is actually my career as an Android engineer. Until finally, I applied to a big startup back in Indonesia as an Android engineer. And then the head of product manager called me exactly 2 weeks before my first day and asked, looking to your CV, I think you are fit for a product manager. And then, okay, what is product manager? So at that time, I kind of asking him, give me time for research about these roles, and I'll give you answer after that. And I said, okay, I'm kind of like okay with the role. I didn't really understand it at that time. I thought like this is very generalist kind of like work. Like you have to understand technical stuff, you have to understand business, you have to understand probably also UX. I didn't have any business background, to be honest. And I did my negotiation. I said, all right, I would like to try 6 months in product management. If I like it and you feel that I'm fit for this role, let's continue it. But if not, I would really like to go back to Android engineer. So I actually learning by doing it. And then from my 6 month experience, I was like, okay, what is actually the things that I gain from this role? So I feel there are 3 things that I really like. First, it's definitely about the people. I think I have in certain degree understand everyone, understand my stakeholder. I need to put my shoes in their shoes and trying to build like empathy, like why actually they are asking specific features. And at the same time also learn to be humble, because at the same time I'm generalist. I'm not an expert in business, I'm not an expert in engineering, I'm not an expert in UX. But how I try to bring my role to add the value. Yes, I'm not an expert in business, I'm not an expert in marketing, but when I'm discussing stuff with my marketing stakeholder, I will give them an input. This is the technical part and this is the user experience part. So that's definitely the first thing, the people. The second thing is I like to also kind of understanding the process, like changing the process. Like, okay, probably already have a quite good process that would actually bring our product to our users. Is there anything that we can actually improve? Is there anything that actually makes sense for our team and also the stakeholders? So I like to play around with this improving or challenging our status quo processes. And then the last thing itself is actually the product. So definitely, I think managing the product is something that for me myself, it's kind of like a problem solving. It's pretty much like when I was working as an engineer, it's also a problem solving kind of task. But in this specific area, the problem solving is not about like creating specific code, but the problem solving, understanding your user, understanding what is your competitor, and what is actually the best output for your company. So that probably why I'm still hold in product management role. Yeah.
Thank you, Fanny. You are also a very good example for how a career can change from one profession to another, which has also been mentioned several times in the chat now with regards to product. So being a product leader myself, I think I can totally take this question now quickly. So in my perspective, and that's personal, of course, so other product leaders might disagree to this, but I feel that it's not necessary to have studied product management. The most important ingredient for becoming a good product manager is the interest to the customer and for the user, and then being able to adapt on the user problems that are present with the company that you work for. And whether you have been an engineer before and now switch sides and become the problem solver versus then, you know, actually doing and implementing it, or also you might have been a designer before that, which also only means that you have been prior to the actual product implementation, but still you know all the processes, you know user research, and you know how the product managers work. So I think as long as passion and ambition is there, everyone can be a product manager, because the soft skills you need, you know, everything around Scrum and all the methodologies and methods that you have and the techniques that, you know, make you an excellent product managers, that can all be learned. That's not rocket science. So, you know, you will need some months until you've adapted to, you know, the common style of how product managers work. But in order to be really good, the only prerequisite for that is to have passion for the user and being ambitious to want to solve the problems that the users have. And that's it. So if you feel that product is what you want to do, just go for it and apply and make your case. That's all. So I would encourage everyone to do this. And there's a second question which came up several times, which I would also like to come back to quickly, which is around how to find the right mentor and how do I know I have found the right one, or how do I approach someone that I think should or could be my mentor. So because we have, all of us, right, have had mentors in the past, maybe Monique, you can start sharing your experience and help others understand this question a bit better.
Sure. I've been very fortunate to be involved with professional organisations such as the International Association of Business Communicators or the Public Relations Institute of Australia. And through these professional organisations, they've got mentoring programs, and you can apply and they team you up with a mentor, so someone who really wants to help someone in the profession. So the benefit there is that they understand what your job is and the bigger picture of the profession, and they're also they're outside of the company. I've also been in organisations where they've had mentoring programs, and again been teamed up with, it's a little bit like a dating type of thing at the start, where you sit down and have a coffee and work out if you think you can learn from each other and if you've got that chemistry. But I chose someone who knew about my profession, but most importantly, the internal organisational one was someone who understood the history and the background of different key players in the organisation. So I could say to him, hey, I really don't understand why Sarah doesn't want to support Bob's project. And he would be able to say to me, oh, that's because Sarah and Bob worked together 5 years ago, and she undercut him on something else. Mm-hmm. And then it all, like, that insight kind of helps things make sense. But actually, I was in a session with Peter, who's online with us, Peter Waugh, today with one of my clients, and I think it's exactly as Peter explained to my clients, and I was clapping in the background. It's essential to find someone who understands you but also complements some of your weaknesses, someone who's maybe, if you're, you know, quite sort of easy to fly into a temper, or easy to get upset about something, that you find someone who's quite cool and rational to kind of bounce off you, or vice versa, someone who can provide so that emotional kind of enthusiasm where you might feel you're lacking. One of the really cool trends that's coming along at the moment is also reverse mentoring. So I heard about a great program. For example, it was in America, where they had, as a part of the organisation, they had senior leaders were mentored with junior people of colour, so that the senior leaders could understand their perspective and learn from the frontline staff. So it's basically, it's a Woody Allen quote of whatever works. You've got to find out what works for you and be clear on what you need as an individual to help you grow. And that might mean different mentors and different parts in time.
All right. Thanks so much, Monique. Kirsten, is there anything you would add, or do you feel that Monique has already mentioned the most important things?
Yeah, I fully agree with Monique when it comes to what type of mentor. So having somebody who balances what you have, definitely agree on that one. A question I often get is, how do I find a mentor? And I'm even wondering why so many people are feeling that they don't have already a mentor. Because I always feel that most of the people I'm talking to, they already have a mentor, but they are not aware of it. Mm-hmm. And maybe that's something I like to point out here, because I always encourage to ask yourself, is there a person in your business life, maybe who's a little bit up the ladder and not your direct boss, but somewhere else in the company, who just takes time for you to have a 15 minutes coffee, or whenever you have a question, who addresses to it? And because that person might do it just out of a favor because he likes you, but most of the time they feel it because they want to empower you, because they want you to do it right, and they want you to get to the next level. And if you look at your own colleagues and your own career and your own company from that angle, with that perspective, most of the people, they find lots of people in their life who actually do that. And for me, it's I often also try to stay in contact with, for example, former bosses or people I've worked with in the past, because most of the time, if you stick to them and you have some exchange on what you've learned over the past, but at the same time also have the new perspective because you switch companies or you do something else, they know you and they know how you're working and what you're trying to achieve. But they have a completely different angle to the company. So they don't have any political own agenda, hidden agenda. They're completely out. And so if you have anybody who's been either peer or above, I can assume there are much more mentors you have than you actually believe you have. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you so much. Quickly on Sarah's question, she asked, with someone with B2B SaaS sales background could leverage and pivot to product? Of course you can. I think that's the same answer that I had given before. Just that, if you have the sales background, that's actually, a very important skill that you will bring to product, which is customer understanding and understanding how customers react to certain products. And you would know how to interact with customers and how to address them with a problem that you want to solve or have already solved and now present to them. So I think what is sometimes hard work for product managers, which is really understanding the customers and their needs and problems, is something that you would bring to the table right from the start. So also for you, I don't see anything or any problem on why you shouldn't be able to switch to product if this is what your heart beats for and this is where your passion and your intrinsic motivation is. Then also here, just go for it, and just make sure that you have this answer in place when a recruiter asks you, okay, so you did sales, why do you want to do product? Just have your pitch ready on why you want to make this shift. That's the only thing. All right, unfortunately we only have 7 minutes left, so I think we can only take either 1 or 2 questions if people can type fast, or if not we can maybe just move to the third question, which we have prepared, which is, we thought it would be interesting for you to understand how to manage male-dominated industries, like we've spoken about automotive, for example, and also tech. So there might be a situation where women especially, and most people in our audience are women, where we feel, oh, okay, it's only men. Do I actually apply? Or you are in the company and then you enter a meeting room and there are 10 men sitting there and then it's yourself. And we are happy to address this as our last point. However, now I do see 2 questions, and we said we do your questions before our answers. So let's quickly read. We have Priyanka asking, how are you as a panel individually looking to support us? Well, so this is what the Mentoring Club is all about, right? So we've actually founded this and have all these great mentors with us on the platform now because we want to be there to help, which means that at any given point in time, you can go to mentoring-club.com, go through all the mentors that we already have as members and book your session with them. And this is gonna last, right? This is not even though we did this because of the COVID crisis and all of us being stuck at home, we have very strong plans for the future and want to keep the platform running and make it even more successful and more spread. So you can book a session with any of the mentors at any point in time, and we feel this is the support that we can give back to everyone who wants. And then Tamiris is asking, what advice would you give to those who speak intermediate English and would like to try an opportunity abroad, even if they don't master the language but have necessary hard skills? Well, that's difficult, right? I think my perspective on this is just move there and learn the language. It will come over time. It will take you maybe 1 to 2 months, if you are in the country and already have, the basic set of, let's say, vocabulary. You can for sure learn this. But happy to give room to everybody else to answer.
I'll be very brief and say when I first moved to Germany in 2010, I've been back to Australia for a while since then, but when I first moved to Germany in 2010, I couldn't actually speak the language, and by the time I had a basic grasp of the language, I found myself in a company that had German as the company language. And as long as you're good at your job and what you're supposed to deliver on, then people are there to support you. And again, it's about not being shy to ask for help. This applies to everybody. There is so much goodwill out there, and I think quite often people are too modest to reach out and say, hey, this is a really important report, do you mind just proofreading it for me? Or I can help you with something else. You have a little bit of a buddy system. So just do it.
All right. Thank you so much, Monique, for these insights as well. So we only have 3 minutes left, and for sure we don't want to miss the chance to thank all of you for joining us today. It's very unfortunate that time went by so fast and we couldn't cover more of the topics, but for sure this won't be the last panel that we did with the Mentoring Club, so you can just stay tuned. And I think I will hand over for Sebastian for final words.
Yes, thank you, Jess, and also thank you to everyone who was involved today. It really shows that the team that was created over the last couple of weeks and months in the Mentoring Club is very strong and here really to help. And yeah, it makes me quite proud to see such a valuable discussion happening. Also it's kind of sad that it's over already, right? I think we could go on for like another hour or so. However, as I said in the beginning, this won't be the last one, so we will have more like this. We have plans to put to have some Ask Me Anything questions, Ask Me Anything events, maybe some presentations, other panel talks about several topics, etc. So stay tuned, everyone. And probably I share my screen just once again. If you like to continue the discussion in Twitter, in LinkedIn, or wherever, right? You can support us. Just use these 2 hashtags here to help you and Women Shaping Their Career, and post your questions, post your opinions, your ideas, etc. Don't forget to mention the Mentoring Club as said here. And yeah, we will try to keep being engaged with you and hopefully answer your questions directly in Twitter and LinkedIn, or in more blog posts as we did a week ago. So if you didn't read that, you can also go to our blog.mentoring-club.com. There's a quite great article written by Monique about the topic we had today. And yeah, as I said, stay tuned, and thanks to everyone.
Thanks so much, everyone. Bye-bye. Have a nice morning, lunchtime, evening, wherever you are.